Drive safely. Story 2. Drunk driver. Music blaster. Women everywhere and non-stop liquor is pouring into John like oil pouring into a fuel truck. He's just down his 8th glass of Henny and he's now pouring up his 9th. His life is a disaster. His ex just broke up with him. His boss just fired him. And on top of that, he's already 3 months behind on his rent. He couldn't buy a hooker for the night if he wanted to, which is why he's most certainly taking full advantage of this $2 Liquor Thursdays at Club Muy Caliente. The women are catching his attention every time he looks around the club. There's beautiful women everywhere. Bottles are popping all around him, and John isn't afraid to ask people for a drink, or 2, or 3. He's attempting to drown himself in his agony. He's hurting inside psychologically and emotionally. Every so often, he gazes at the bartender who reminds him of his ex because she looks similar to her. That's crushing him on the inside as he knows that she has already moved on to someone else. He signaled to the bartender to pour him yet another drink, but she refused. That caused him to become enraged. He stood up from the bar stool, nearly tripping over the bar stool. He can barely stand up straight. He's slurring his words as he attempts to curse her out, but even he realized he's not making much sense. He slammed his glass down onto the bar counter, cracking it, as he noticed a couple of bouncers making their way over to him. He basically waved the white flag at that very moment as he stopped them. This is a losing cause, and he knows it, which forced him to just make his way out of the club as the bouncers followed behind him. He finally exited the club and gradually made his way over to his car. His vision is dramatically impaired, so much so that he's seeing double. He had to feel around on his vehicle just to make sure that he was actually standing next to his car because he is seeing double. He pulled his car keys out of his pocket and immediately dropped them on the floor. He had to duck down to grab them, and on the way back up, he smacked his face into his car door. He then entered into his car with part of his face throbbing in pain. He slammed his car door shut and took nearly an eternity to insert his car key into his car's ignition. After a few minutes, he did just that and started up his car. He took a look back while putting his car in drive. He ended up ramming his car into the car parked right in front of him. John's mind is so impaired, he just laughed it off as he then put his car in reverse and backed out. He drove away slowly before he drove out of the parking lot area to the main road. His depression and sadness kicked in as he placed his foot on the gas pedal, accelerating at a fast speed. On the regular road, he drove upwards of 90 miles per hour as he's still seeing double. He blew past red light after red light, causing vehicles to swerve out of his way. He's still just laughing everything off as he remembers that he has a bottle of liquor that he brought earlier that he had yet to drink, which caused him to take a look around for that bottle. His foot is still ramming the gas pedal, so he hasn't slowed down at all as he's searching on the passenger side of the car for the bottle of liquor. After some time, He found a bottle on the passenger's floor as he finally looked up to face the road where a family of four stood on the side of the road waiting for a tow truck to come to their broken down van. John panicked, knowing his vehicle is heading right in their direction. He tried to swerve to avoid from hitting them, but his car steamrolled the family of four, killing them all at once. John's vehicle then collided into the van, causing him to eject from the vehicle and ended his life immediately. 5 lives ended in a hurry because of one man's terrible poor decisions. Be careful, everyone. Pay full attention to your surroundings at all times, no matter what. Hit and run horror story. Have you ever heard about a hit and run incident that ever took place? Have you ever sat back and considered not the loved ones of the victim, but the actual victim themselves? What if I told you one of those victims could have changed the world for the better, but never got a chance to? What if I told you one of those victims could have saved the lives of millions of people, but never got a chance to? See, on August 9th, Jonathan M. was outside playing football with his brothers and friends. Jonathan had been a straight A student ever since the first grade, and he was on his way to Oxford University, where he was going to introduce the world to his studies and findings on a cure for heart disease, diabetes, AIDS, and dementia. He had been researching and doing trial studies on various animals in order for him to come up with those cures, and he truly believed that he had the cures to those diseases all figured out, which is why he's outside celebrating with his family and friends by barbecuing and playing some street football. His family came from the slums, and he hoped to one day remove them from a life of poverty into a life of wealth. And he planned on that day coming rather soon, especially given the fact that he knows that he's come up with a scientific research and studies, along with trials, to back up his theory. All of that hard work and research findings is saved on an encrypted USB upstairs on his computer desk. He's on top of the world as he goes in motion before his brother snaps the ball. Jonathan went in motion, then took off, running once his brother snapped the football, and quickly he got wide open. He caught the ball and he took off running to the end zone where he scored a touchdown to tie up the game. Now the game was on the line as the opposition's offense took the field. They quickly went 3 and out, and in no time Jonathan's team had the ball back, and it was now the first to score wins. Jonathan may not be the most athletic person alive, but he's one of the most competitive people you would ever meet. He heard the trash talking coming from the defense, and that only made him want to win even more. The ball snapped and he ran a route better known as a slant and goal, where he gained some separation from the defender. Jonathan was so locked in that he didn't hear the sound of a car horn honking its horn as it collided right into Jonathan, sending him airborne nearly a dozen feet in the air. Jonathan's life ended upon collision with that vehicle, as his neck snapped in a hurry upon collision. The driver of that vehicle never stopped driving, they just kept on going. Jonathan's family and friends rushed to his aid as his lifeless body lied in the middle of the road. Jonathan, who was his family's only hope for a better life, died on that day. And in a sense, his family died a little bit as well. Jonathan's studies can never be shared with the world. His findings would never be tested by professionals. He could have saved the lives of millions of people potentially. However, we would never truly know what impact in this world he could have made, all because of the events of that day. Be careful, everyone. Pay full attention to the road while you're driving at all times. You never know if you could be responsible for ending the life of someone who could have changed the world for the better. Yacht Party Disaster, Detective Cynthia Blunt's Chronicles. Billionaire oil tycoon Rich Stevens indulges in the finest things in life. There's no such thing as expensive to him. There's most certainly no such thing as too expensive to him, as he spends, and makes that money right back in a hurry. Rich loves fast supercars, big luxurious homes, and mega-sized yachts, which is why he has dozens of each scattered all over the globe. Even more satisfying to Rich is his infatuation with murder. He's a sex addict who usually ends his journey with beautiful women by executing them. In this life, most people can be brought, and Rich knows that, and he takes full advantage of that every so often by inviting a young, beautiful socialite to his island somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. However, these women never return back home. The evidence that he's responsible for these women being missing is overwhelming. However, where he's located, there's nothing that can stop him from continuing to do what he has already been doing for an extremely long time. His evil ways has caught the attention of Detective Cynthia Blunt. Case after case of missing young ladies are scattered all over her desk, and all the signs point to Rich Stevens as being the last person to come in contact with each and every one of these victims. She knows all about him, gifting these young ladies expensive purses and thousands of dollars way before he even offers to fly them out to his island. None of those ladies who've accepted his invitation to fly out to his island were ever heard from once they did just that. Cynthia Blunt can't stand nothing more than a man who preys on women, which is why for the past 3 months she's built an incredible social media following, as she's become one, if not the most popular social media socialite in the world. She's garnered the attention of millions of people, including Rich Stevens, who sent her dozens of roses, an expensive purse, $100,000 cash, and a one-way ticket to Rich's island. Rich either doesn't care that she's a cop, or he never checked the address of which Cynthia told him to send her those gifts. As she sits in her office, she's taking a close look at those gifts before she examines the image of those missing young ladies, and deep down inside, she knows exactly what her next move must be. Within a couple of hours, she boarded a private jet with a luggage filled with one dress, tons of ammunition, and several guns. Her flight landed 3 hours later in the middle of nowhere on Rich's Island, where he greeted her. With her guns fully loaded, one in her purse, a few tucked away in her dress, she headed off with Rich to his yacht. Just 3 people resided on this island at this time: Detective Cynthia Blunt, Rich, and the pilot, who was left back at the small airport on Rich's Island. Rich introduced Cynthia to his football stadium-sized home before he introduced her to his yacht. Cynthia acted fascinated to play it off, but her only goal is to find out the whereabouts of those young ladies. A half-hour travel by, and they were both on Rich's yacht as they sailed away miles from his island. Rich poured them both several glasses of alcohol that Cynthia tossed away into the ocean whenever Rich wasn't paying any attention to her. He's a narcissist who could only glorify himself and all of his financial achievements. Cynthia, meanwhile, was sick to her stomach, hearing him blab on and on all about himself, which caused her to ask him where his restroom was located so that she could freshen up. He informed her where it was, and she headed off. She left him at the cockpit while she began searching around the yacht, making her way to the bulge, which was filled with darkness. However, Detective Cynthia Blunt came well prepared. She removed a small flashlight from her purse and turned it on, which allowed her to discover the dead corpses of several young ladies. Bits and chunks were taken out of their bodies in the form of teeth marks, which notified her in a hurry that Rich wasn't just killing these ladies, he's also eating them as well. Suddenly the sound of footsteps sounded as the light in the bulge turned on, and there in the doorway stood Rich with a smile on his face. He examined Cynthia while licking his lips as he spoke. "I bet you taste a lot better than any of those other ladies." He began gradually marching in Cynthia's direction, who kept completely calm as she's facing the serial killer. Seconds later, she exposed her pistol that she aimed at Rich, who laughed at her. "Now relax. You don't want to do something you'll most certainly regret," he spoke. Cynthia quickly replied, "You're right. I don't want to do something I will regret, but I won't regret doing this." She then unloaded the bullets in her gun into Rich, killing him instantly. She reloaded and shot him some more to make sure that even his evil spirit wouldn't come back from the dead. Case closed. A killer stopped. However, there's so many more evil people for Detective Cynthia Blunt to stop.